Hey y'all, welcome to the Team LocoFit Roundtable, hosted by me, Lauren Conlon, owner of Team LocoFit. Each week, I am joined by one of our coaches to dive headfirst into the nutrition, training, mindset, and coaching strategies we use with our clients. If you loved the show, please subscribe, leave us a review, tell a friend, you know the drill. And for more information about coaching, the programs we offer, and additional content, visit teamlocofit.com.
Welcome back.
Whoa!
To the ASMR LocoFit.
AMSR. Welcome back, guys. I'm with Coach Jill, who always jumps my amazing introductions. I mean, I know you guys are really going to miss out on that awesome intro.
Hello.
We just start like tapping the mics. Jill was eating blueberries earlier for our sound check, so that was exhilarating to say the least.
I mean, no one asked for it, but
nobody asked.
I delivered. So.
But Jill delivers on those things that nobody quite asked for.
Just falling into the deep depths of the internet and finding things that I didn't know existed. So.
But we actually have a topic that people have asked for,
yes.
And this is really, really relevant for everybody listening. So this is going to be all about coach-client communication. And we're going to walk through a few things as far as setting up expectations, what to expect from each other, and also like boundaries with social media and communication in general. And this is something, like I said, that literally affects everybody listening, whether you are somebody who is interested in working with a coach, you are currently a client, or you are a coach or interested in being one. So first things first, setting expectations from the start is so critical. And this doesn't mean that you can't change over time, right? Like there's plenty of things that we've done as a business that like we didn't start off doing.
Yeah.
And then we had to make a, course correction at some point. But as soon as you can tell somebody, hey, here's the new protocol, here's what we're doing, you say it up front, and that way there's way less pushback and there's way less confusion. Because if you don't tell somebody something and you don't set those expectations clearly, how can you expect them to read your mind?
Yeah, exactly. Like being honest with where they're at and what they're looking to do. That's the best thing you can do as far as kickstarting that relationship together too.
Yeah, literally from the initial consult, like the first time that you talk to somebody, whether it's the first email or the first video that you send. Typically what we do is people will send in their application and then we'll shoot over a quick video. Hey, here's, I looked over everything. This is what I'm thinking. Let's get on a call and we can kind of talk through this.
Yeah, and in some instances, I need to ask a little bit more questions in order to really decide like, hey, like this is what I think would be the best course of action for you in your situation. And that, a lot of people do appreciate that because sometimes they're coming from coaches who, promise them crazy results in 6 weeks or 12 weeks, whereas, hey, like we can get there. It's just, this is what I think the best timeline is going to be for you.
Yeah, and we never know. We're not, crystal ball readers, so we don't know exactly how long it's going to take people, but we're always very upfront. I just had somebody the other day who reached out about wanting to start a prep, and this is somebody who has a lot of food knowledge, a lot of food education, but she's never competed before and isn't really familiar with that world. So I was like, hey, we're looking at about a year. She was like, what? And I was like, yeah, just as a baseline, about 3 months before, 6 months for a prep, and at least 3 months after. If you're not willing to dedicate that amount of time, it's going to be really, really rough on you as the client, and we're not going to be able to deliver as a team. So just being honest up front, even if you don't have the exact, hey, it might be 3 months, it might be 4 months, who knows?
Yeah.
But as giving somebody a general timeline, not just saying like you said, promising the world in 8 weeks. No, hey, let's think about this in this amount of time. We're going to have these small goals along the way, but here's what the main kind of timeline looks like. So from the initial point of contact, being honest with people is so crucial. And then when the client does sign up, this is also incredibly important too. Not just being like, hey, you signed up, okay, like telling people, all right, you can expect your plan in
this many days.
Yes. This is how the check-in process is going to go. This is what is expected, etc.
Yeah.
And if you don't say that, then they are never going to know.
Yeah, and that's a really common thing I talk about with the client on the initial phone call too. It's like, hey, like here's our check-in process. Here's what, we're going to be pretty much talking about every week, or what I ask of you every week. And then from there, they take that information and we can move forward with that, knowing that they know what they're looking at and what they're going to be expecting.
Yeah, and this is the actual check-in process is going to be so different across teams, and there's no one right way to do this, certainly. But you have to, again, be explicit from the beginning what you expect of people and what they can expect from you, too. So things like response times, incredibly important. We pretty much always say, hey, we will get back to this within 24 hours. If you have a different response time, that's also fine. Like if you, hey, I'm going to be 48 hours, or if you're going to deviate from that, like this week I have a trip coming up and I hate changing check-ins so much because I understand that everybody gets in their routine and their habit, and I will do everything in my power to do check-ins on those days. But last week and then this week coming up, I have these events where literally I am busy the entire day for these these business events, and I have to be present for them. That's why I spend a lot of money to go there and learn. And it's not like, oh, I'll just stay up and do it. Like literally the last event, I was getting up at 4 a.m. to like start the PT, was busy all day, was going out to dinner, was home at like 10:30, and like, I'm not going to do a check-in right now. So have to move stuff. And so in that case, it's like, hey, I'm moving, say very upfront, like a week before. This is when I need you to send it in. I will get everything done by X date. I'm going to get it all done, but it might be a little bit of a longer turnaround time. And then people expect that, and they're totally okay with it. And obviously clients who are in a certain situation like prep, that's going to be higher priority. Hey, if you're in prep, send it to me this day so I can get it done as soon as possible, and we can adjust. And then also how and when to send the check-ins, and that's something that we changed a few years ago, and it's been total lifesaver.
I think setting check-in days, specific days for each client, it gives you that structure throughout the week, and it gives you some kind of timeline to work with as far as, hey, like all my time is going to be dedicated to this many clients each day, and even having a cutoff time for, hey, like I just need your check-in to be sent in before this time on your assigned check-in day. That just keeps you more organized, and also it also helps set some boundaries as far as, I'm blocking out my time specifically for each client on this given day. Anything later than that, right? It may bleed into the next check-in day. So it's very important.
We were working together when I didn't have that, right? Or did we?
I feel like, we were.
Yeah, because
we were working together. Actually, when we started coaching, we had a whole different check-in system.
Yeah.
Because you were trying to use that online. It was like an online program that just like crapped out of nowhere, and then that's kind of where we brought the spreadsheet in.
Yeah.
For sure.
Oh, I've gone through so many different like iterations of check-ins, and I feel like now the system we have is really, really good. But yeah, when people are always like, oh, try the system, I'm like, nope, never again. I'm very stubborn and I try to be open, but there are certain things that I don't like when I don't have when it's not mine and I don't have control over it. Then
there's like so many unknowns that
like
what if it just like craps out one day?
Yeah, it could be the best system in the world. If I can't log in, that's unacceptable.
Yeah.
So if I have a check-in that I own, it doesn't matter. If I have an email connection, we're good.
Yeah.
So response times, when, how to send the check-ins, what platforms to use, not use, and then, so again, everybody's gonna be different here. Some people will use, we use a combination of like Word and Excel, which can be put on numbers and sheets and all those kind of things.
A lot of different ways that it can be.
Yeah, you could use a coaching system. Some people have their own app they've developed. Some people use
there's like applications already out there or websites for it. Again, pros and cons.
Yeah, you totally up to you. Some people only do phone or Zoom. You know what I mean? Some people only obviously see their clients in person. So there's going to be a wide variety here, but the whole point is to not say what is the best system. You have to figure out what's best for you, but you need to lay it out up front.
Yeah, what's going to be most efficient for you and what's going to help you give your clients the quality of work that they deserve. So,
and that's I put that in there too. Why did you set it up this way? We don't have rules for the sake of having rules. Like we're not saying, hey, you're a Tuesday check-in just because. You're a Tuesday check-in because this is how it fit into the rest of the week. This is how I can give you the best responses.
Yeah, and some days, like, there are some days out of my week that I know are going to be, like, heavier in terms of my workload, and I do it like that. This way, hey, Thursday and Friday may be a lighter work day, and I could fit people there. But if I'm traveling, which I am traveling today, or, typically Thursday, Friday is going to be the days that I choose to travel and get on planes. So I choose to have those days.
Or like second prep check-ins.
Yeah, or, midweek check-ins. A lot of those fall on between Thursday and Saturday. So I may choose to keep those days intentionally lighter, but there's all reasons behind that as far as what I can handle and what work I need to prioritize.
Yeah, and ultimately it comes down to figuring out how you as a coach can give the client the best response. And that is going to look very different for some people. And, you know, like obviously, for example, Sam just had her baby. So her check-in days now are a little bit different based on other things, right? You know, when you were in school and when Karina's in school, it's going to look, it's going to be based on those days. So, you know, when you're not doing that, it's going to be based on travel. So it really just depends, and there's no perfect system, but setting those expectations from the beginning is very, very important for both the coach and the client. The next thing is understanding what to expect from each other.
Oh yeah, that's a big one.
First and foremost, whoa, as I'm punching the microphone.
God, can't do anywhere.
Made for kids. I'm just cursing.
That's a whole other story.
That's a different story. Yeah, we won't even go down that rabbit hole. Anyways, this is not made for children. Sorry in advance if you guys are listening with your kids. But first, both of you should always have clear and honest communication.
Yeah.
As much as possible. That is the cornerstone of everything. Coaching is a relationship.
Yeah, and we went over that way more in that other episode I think we did on the questionnaire or the check-in process, right? As far as, or like what makes that relationship successful or client successful. It's qualities.
So, like, what
it was definitely recent, but
some podcasts we've done.
Yeah,
just go through.
There's like 160 episodes at this point. This is probably going to be 162. I can count.
Damn.
Yeah, right?
You're like, this is 170.
We are celebrating on episode 200. I'm just saying. We missed 100, and it just flew by, and no one said anything except me. So now I'm making it a thing.
We missed 150. Like, I don't know. I'm going to pull out like a random, like 178.
That's pretty much the, yeah, okay.
178. We're going to celebrate. Mark it now. Jill's face.
I'm so unamused. Anyway.
So unamused. Okay, so clear, honest communication.
Yeah, clear, honest communication. And having those expectations both ways is going to be super important too. You know, it's not just about me, you know, asking the questions and giving you that quality work, but I also need that information from you as a client. You know, I need the client to, hey, send me your stuff, you know, stay, you know, consistent with the check-in process at least, right? You know, give me relevant information and give me something to also provide feedback on. You know, this way, if I'm not getting relevant information, I'm only working with what I have.
Yes, and that was what I wrote for the client. Sending the relevant information that the coach needs to hear is crucial, and sending it, like you said, consistently. So we have weekly check-ins for a reason. Now, obviously, life happens, things happen, you know, people move, you know, they travel, shit gets crazy at work, like sometimes people miss check-ins, and that's totally fine.
Yeah, and sometimes I tell clients, like, hey, if you're going on vacation and this is going to be harder, like, we'll touch base when you get back.
Yeah,
right?
just send me an email, you don't need to fill out this whole sheet, you know, here's the plan, you know what to do. But when it's a very haphazard check-in, so say somebody is a Monday check-in, and then they maybe miss 2 weeks, and then they just randomly will send it on like a certain day, and then they kind of just ping pong back and forth, and then they're wondering why they're not seeing the results. And it's like, well, if we're not getting all the information on a consistent basis, we're not able to adjust things, and they might be really, really tiny adjustments, but those tiny adjustments add up. So if we're not doing that, then you're not going to see the results that you want to see. And as a coach, you have to ask the right questions and know what to prompt. Because if you don't do that, the client is not going to feel comfortable sharing that information, right? Like and again, there's some people who run very successful businesses who do not ask a lot of questions. But I know that for myself, I always kind of struggled with that. And then I also know that putting myself in the client's shoes and the coach's shoes, it's really hard to just like randomly put stuff together when you're sending a check-in, right? Like you could be feeling a certain way. Like if, say you're having a really, really stressful week, if there's no check-in questions, like, hey, just send me an email. The only thing the check-in is going to focus on is
the weight,
that. And then, well, what else happened? Why were you stressed? What else did this affect? And if we ask those questions, then we can actually piece it together, and it's not so much of a mystery. Versus, so that as the coach, it's really important to see that full picture. And like, we don't just ask questions because we like want you to write all this out. Like, we're asking for very specific
there's reasons behind all this stuff, and I always describe it as like, hey, like it gives me a full picture of what's happening that week, rather than getting, say, your weigh-ins and maybe we had a weight fluctuation, and then me not knowing anything else that's going on in your week. For all I know, you could be on your cycle, you could be stressed, your sleep could be shit, you could be moving, right? Like, there's a lot of things that could be causing these changes week to week, and we just get all that information up front. This way, we can really evaluate whether we're going to make changes, or even whether, it's best to not make changes, because, stuff happens.
Yeah, I think that the biggest changes that I've made with the check-ins have come from what questions am I consistently asking as a follow-up, or like what am I always missing here? Like, there has to be a gap somewhere, and when there's a gap, that's when you fill it in with, okay, let's add this to the check-in sheet. And of course, there is a point of diminishing returns. If you asked 500 questions, people would not want to fill it out, and I get that. But I think they all have their place. They all go together.
Yeah, they cover they cover a lot of areas.
Yeah,
so.
The things that matter the most. And then obviously if there's additional stuff, people can ask it there too.
And sometimes there's really not much to put there because things are pretty steady going, and that's even,
that's fine too.
Better. So
some weeks aren't catastrophic, and then other weeks, like,
there's
literally
more,
the world is ending.
there's more that's relevant that week.
But if we were only to ask, hey, just how's it going?
That's
whoa.
What do you want a paragraph? You want an essay?
Yeah, like what as
that's like very like what are you talking about?
Yeah, as the coach, we can't really make adjustments based on that, because you're only going to give us, like I said, what is the main focus of that week. And if that week is just you're super stressed out, okay, well, we're missing the other pictures. Or if you're having a really bad week digestively, but we know nothing else about your water, sleep, stress, training. How can we adjust? So that's what to expect, and it always comes back to communication and being very clear with each other. And then I wanted to touch on boundaries, just other boundaries in general, and then social media in particular. So this is a whole can of worms, but there is a interesting topic, and I don't really know what field this would fall under. Actually, maybe
boundaries,
neuroscience. What field of science this would fall under. Clearly, I'm not smart enough to know, but it's called context switching. Yeah, big brains.
Big brains.
Context switching. So when you're switching your attention, even for a minute, it's going to impede cognitive function for far longer than that attention drift. So what is an example of context switching? Say I'm trying to answer a check-in, right? I opened it up, I downloaded it, I'm looking at it. I get a text message, I see the notification. Okay, that comes in. Well, what's going on here? I pick up my phone, I look at it, put it back down. Something else dings. Oh, there was a message. Somebody sent me a message here on Instagram. What did they say? That took 5 seconds, not even a minute. But now, it's also known in the literature as like attention residue. You're basically hung up on these things. And it's not like you can you see it and you clear it out of your mind. You're now looking at it and thinking, okay, well, you're trying to juggle now 3 things while you're still trying to answer this person's email, and think about how much longer that's going to take and how less effective you're going to be because you're still thinking about these other things. So Cal Newport does a lot of work in this area. He's written amazing books. He's one of my favorite writers just because of how he writes. Also, I like the information that he writes, but the way he writes is really, really good. So if you're interested in this type of stuff, Deep Work is amazing. Digital Minimalism is amazing. And then he just came out with a new book, which I haven't read yet. It's called A World Without Email. And again, it's obviously not about not having emails. I think that if you were just to look at the surface level of what he talks about, people would be like, oh, no, I have to have email. It's not talking about not having email. He's talking about this ping pong constantly. We deal with it a little bit less, obviously. We deal with it, but say you're in a normal work environment, like an office, and somebody, instead of coming to just ask you something, they just send you 5 emails, and now you're thinking about that and you can't get your work done. So Cal Newport has amazing work in this area. But so this context switching is something that I started to notice as I did more and more work, obviously online. It was a really big struggle for me. And I would find myself just so fucking distracted all day. And when I finally read this, I was like, oh, this makes sense. This is an actual process in my brain, and that's why it's not working. I'm not crazy and broken. This is a real thing. So what comes out of that is what oftentimes people call like time blocking. So the reason that we'll do things to block off, whether it's like time or our attention essentially, is to say, okay, like I'm going to now do check-ins for the next 2 hours. Then I'm going to take a break. I might make a post. Then I might go have a phone call, and you have all these things planned out, and you know, and you're not like, oh, let me go do an update, and then, oh, I need to make a post, and then let me scroll, and then, oh shit, I have that phone call. Very different day than if you have that kind of blocked out. Do you find that helps?
No, yeah, I find that it helps a lot. And I like to block out my weeks ahead of time anyway. So like if I have phone calls, if I have anything going on, like that's already in my schedule and I can kind of plan around it. But for example, like Anakin's been waking me up at like 6:30, but I try to use that. I'm like, okay, well I can start check-ins maybe like 7. I'm gonna do emails between 7 and 10, and then at that point, you know, I'll probably either make a post or do something else, or you know, maybe I'm gonna have a phone call or whatever, right? And then I have time that I separate for getting to the gym and doing this other stuff. So I find that it keeps me really on task for the day, and I feel like I'm much more ahead of things rather than kind of bopping around. Because I've been there, I can literally think of like dates where I've done that, but where, you know, either I'm like working on a check-in and then I get distracted and then I'm like, oh, well, I might as well just like write this up now. And then I'm back at my laptop and I'm like, well, I'm really frazzled right now, so maybe I should just like,
dude, it's so bad. And like it's a byproduct of kind of just our world, you know, and I don't know if it's technically, like, I don't think I have diagnosable ADD. Like, I think it literally is just like the byproduct.
It's just
of,
like so many things.
Yeah.
And like the same goes for like, you know, trailing into like social media, right? Like I don't want to coach through social media, and that's just another distraction for me. Whereas all my work can be in one place in my email.
Yes.
And a lot of people are like, you know, very back and forth with this because, yeah, sure, maybe a lot of people do things through like DM or like email, or I mean, not, you know, like, yeah, email, but DM, social media, message apps, stuff like that. But that is a no-go for me. I've tried, like I had one situation back when I first started coaching where I tried to compromise with a client who wanted to use, say, like WhatsApp or something for like their weekly check-ins or like half their check-in or something. You know who the client, yeah, you know this whole situation. But it was just very all over the place and not organized at all. And then on top of that, you know, not very consistent. So having everything in one place, having work in one place, helps me set better boundaries with, I'm working, this is, you know, my office time, and also separate that with, say, social media, which is a part of work. You know, it's definitely part of like, you know.
That's a different context.
It's a different area though, and I don't want to have to coach through there, right? That's like where I try to put out free content, and, you know, I try my best to like keep up with stuff there, but more often than not, I spend most of my time in my email.
Yes, and I would say that there's been this really big shift because social media is so prevalent, everybody's on it all the time, and people are just messaging back and forth. They're always, you know, talking to people, et cetera, et cetera. And there's a time and a place to talk via messages. Like, it's not like we're saying like, oh my God, you can like never reach out to somebody. But if you have a coaching question, or, you know, you're a potential client,
like updates that are relevant to the
absolutely no updates. And even like questions, like if you want that answered in a timely fashion, that all has to be through email. And again, that's where the upfront communication is really important. If a coach is working through one of those apps and that works better for them, that's fine. And I know that this can seem really confusing because people are like, wait, well, why am I not getting answered when like somebody's on social media? And it's like, well, there's, again, different times for different things. So like if I'm on social, it's because, okay, I've worked for a certain amount of time on check-ins. I'm now taking a break to now switch to this. Now I'm dedicating this time here, and then I might go back. And then I know for me, like the hierarchy of everything, obviously number one is clients and you guys as coaches. So like that is always my priority, to make you guys number one. Number two would be things like podcasts and calls, etc. Third would be making posts and, you know, engaging there. And then last is messages. Because for me, sometimes I'm on it, sometimes I'm not, you know what I mean? And that is, it's just an unreliable thing for me because all those other things take priorities. And there's a difference of like somebody tagging you in a story and like, you know, sharing something exciting versus like sending free questions or a check-in. And it's like, no, that's not this context. Like this context is social media. And I know that sounds confusing maybe to some people. But as a coach, if you're trying to give quality information to your clients. And also having the information in one place.
Yeah.
If it's coming from all different sources, it's nearly impossible to remember stuff.
Yeah.
At least for me, like my memory is awful.
For sure. Like if I have part of the check-in coming in through Instagram, like there's no way I'm remembering that.
No.
Like, and it seems like, oh well, you know, I don't get like flooded with the messages by any means, but just for organization purposes and also again boundary purposes, because I've had very up and down. Like I used to do check-ins on the weekends, and now I don't do that anymore, just because I've been better with setting boundaries with like, hey, like I need to be better about getting some time off of my computer and you know, away from work for a little bit, because it could be really hard when you do work online that you can constantly be working, you know, from your phone. You know, Instagram is partially work related, so you know that's also just helpful for me personally, just to have those boundaries set with, hey, like computer is work time, but social media isn't. I mean social media is work, but client work, I mean.
Yeah, and again, it's totally fine for just to dedicate a certain amount of time to that. But again, that's going to be a context to say, okay, the next X amount of time I'm going to be spending checking messages and going through things and doing this. And it doesn't matter how many or how little messages that somebody's getting. Again, it comes down to, if you are a coach and this is a client, it's not the best way to communicate for most people. Now, if a coach says, hey, this is how I communicate with people, then by all means, that's how you're going to communicate. In my opinion, that's certainly going to, obviously, some people are not going to be using social media, so that's going to be hard. But in my mind, everybody uses email. You can do that from your phone or your computer, and we make it in a way that is accessible on all phones, on all computers, on every platform. And that's how we operate. Again, everybody's going to be different, but when you are working with somebody, you have to set that up front. And this is when to send the check-ins, this is how we do them, this is the timing, this is how we communicate, this is all this stuff. This is all packaged up front. And then obviously as things come up, addressing them there. And I think that it's just really important to set those types of boundaries and understand that communication. Because again, this is not because of any other reason than if you are a coach, you're trying to give your clients the best possible feedback. That's all it comes down to. And that is going to look different to each coach based on what they like and what works for them. And then you kind of just go from there. And if that style doesn't work for you as the client, then you can decide, oh, okay, maybe this coach isn't for me. You know,
there's different styles for everyone. You know, you have to find that fit.
For sure. So if you guys have any other questions, of course, let us know. You can visit teamlocofit.com for our articles. We put out an article every week on our newsletter, and they're also on the website. You can check out the other podcasts, and then you can apply for coaching as well. So thank you guys, as always, for tuning in. Oh, my nose just hit.
God, twice.
Damn, twice today. Okay.
Trying to break the equipment?
Yeah. Oh God, no, please. I would. If the equipment gets broken, it's because I like punched it somehow when I'm talking. All right, we will catch you guys Wednesday unless I break the mics.